Thank you very much for coming. So this is basically the second part of the class which I had yesterday, but it can be understood separately also. But I'll do a quick recap of what we discussed yesterday, and then we'll move on to what we're trying to discuss today. Can this be unwound? Can all of you see this projector here? So this TV? Yeah. So you're writing and drawing something there.
Yes, I see something.
It's coming?
Yes. Your screen is here.
Okay, good. Do we have copies of that prayers book available with us?
One copy only.
Only one copy?
Yes.
Oh, really? Okay.
I have my copy.
Okay, sure. That's to be got from you. This is a book inspired by So this is a book where I've taken the Bhagavad-gita's verses as inspiration for prayers and some key verses from the Gita. So each of these articles is there's one spiritual affirmation which is like a prayer. Can you see it from there? Yeah, otherwise you need to move a little bit this side. Okay. So we've taken a verse and a poetic rendition of the verse, and then there's a prayer reflection based on that. Do we have a second mic by chance?
Yes.
Okay, we have different devotees can read this out. Let's begin with some prayers. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Shrimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavati Paschatya Deshatarine Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Okay, repeat after me. My dear Lord, let my plans not blind me to your plan. So those of you who are comfortable, you can recite the verse after me. Aparyaptam tadasmakam balam bhishmabhirakshitam paryaptam tvaitametesham balam bhimabhirakshitam. Our forces, vast beyond all scale, guarded by Bhishma, will not fail. Theirs, guarded by Bhima, remains confined. For failure, they are surely destined. Bhagavad-gita 1.10. Would anyone like to read the first paragraph? Please. You have a mic, by chance? Or you can read out.
I can use my mic.
You can see. Please. Okay, you have inbuilt mic. Okay. Sure.
My dear Lord, it is so easy to be meticulous in not missing a single thing at the material level, while simultaneously missing the most important thing at the spiritual level, which is you, O Lord.
Thank you. So here, this verse is spoken by Duryodhan just before the war is about to begin. And he is assessing the forces on both sides. And he is naming who are the primary warriors on the opposite side and the primary warriors on his side. But while giving this assessment, he completely misses out on one name. Who is that? Krishna. Krishna. He mentions Bhishma, of course. He has mentioned Bhishma is my commander. And so he misses out Krishna completely. Now we could say there's a material reason for this. He thinks that Krishna is not going to fight a war. Krishna is a non-combatant. So therefore Krishna is a non-entity, he thinks. But that's just one level of vision. He does not realize Krishna's position and power. So the theme that we'll be discussing today is how when we make our plans. Yesterday I talked about hold our plans. How was it? You guys remember? Lightly. Hold our plans lightly. And there's something we should hold tightly. What is that?
Krishna.
Yes. Hold our Lord tightly. So hold our plans lightly. Hold our Lord tightly. So, just a very quick recap of what was discussed yesterday. That when we go through life, we may reduce our entire life to just two set of things. That what is done by me and what is done to me. And if what is done by me is very good, I think life is very great. If what is done by me is not so good, we become insecure. And what is done to me is bad, then we feel resentful, we become victims, or we look for villains to blame for our life. Now, spiritual life or devotional life is not just adding one component. Okay, once a week I'll go to a temple, or in the day I'll spend some time for doing some mantra chanting or doing some worship. Yes, those are activities which we add, but bhakti is not meant to be another to-do in our life. We have so many to-dos. On our to-do list we add one more element. Okay, I have to do some mantra chanting, I have to do some puja, I have to go to a temple. That's one way to look at it, but that's a very deficient, even ignorant way of looking at it. Bhakti is actually another way to do. It is another way to do all things in our life. It's with another vision. And what is that bigger vision that Bhakti gives us is that our life is not just about what we do or what is done to us. That above us is Krishna. And the things that are done to us, there is some way Krishna's hand in them. And even the things that are done by us, there is Krishna's role in that. And in that sense, we are not just all alone struggling in this big bad world, trying to survive or thrive. Our life is a part of a bigger picture. So that's the theme which I discussed yesterday. So today we'll try to understand this further, and we'll explore it using an acronym ACT. The Gita's message is a message to act. Krishna is, at the end of the Gita, Arjuna acts. Arjuna is not a person who turns away from the world and renounces the world. Okay? He acts. So how does he act? That's what we will discuss. It is the vision that he gets to act. That is what we'll try to understand. So the first part is, A is appreciate. So appreciate that everything that happens is a part of God's plan. At the same time, you have a gallery view there. Nice. Okay. Next thing I expect somebody is there's like a transparent ceiling over here. Somebody looking from above. I was giving one class, where was it? Actually, Silicon Valley. So their whole ceiling was open. So it was like a glass ceiling and people were sitting on top and looking through the glass ceiling. Literally like you felt as if somebody is supervising you from above. So people there were not able to they're not able to see the TV, but they were directly seeing my tablet. They had to rotate 180 degrees to make sense of what is happening. So now when we say that everything is within God's plan, this has to be very carefully understood. That this raises two major questions. That in general, in philosophy, or specifically in theology, which is the study of God, there is what is called the problem of evil. Problem of evil is that if there is a good God, then why do bad things happen? And there are two aspects to it. I won't go into too much into the philosophy that of theology. I'm just trying to understand how I get to be careful when we say everything is a part of God's plan. That first is people do bad things. Say if we are here in the world, our problems are broadly of three kinds. Now some problems we create in our own lives by our actions. Like say we give in to negative emotions, we give in to self-destructive habits. Like so we consider addiction, those are negatives created by us. Then there are people around us. And people create some problem for us. And then beyond that, there is nature. Nature also creates some negatives for us. So for example, if we live in Canada, in winter it becomes freezing cold over here. So nature creates some problems for us. What are does anyone know the Sanskrit names for these three kind of problems? Adi Daivik. Which is that one? Adi Daivik is which one? The environmental problems. That's Adi Daivik. They come from the broader environment through nature. And the problem that come through people? Adi Bhautik. These are what we call social problems. So, there are mosquitoes which will bite us. There is Mujahideen, extremists who may threaten us. So there are mosquitoes, there are Mujahideen, and there is mother-in-law. No. And that may seem a relatively trivial problem. But for people who are going through it, it doesn't seem a trivial problem. So, there are social problems. And then there are self-created problems. These are the Adi Atmik. These are self-created problems quite often. So, that's a simple classification. Again, my point is that some problems come from people and some problems come from our own actions. Now we could go to problems that come from nature also, and we could discuss that. But generally, when problems come, at that time, how exactly are the problems a part of God's plan? Say, how many of you think that all people are good, or how many of you think that all people are bad? So how many think all people are good? Okay. How many of you think all people are bad? Okay, let me no one. Okay. Okay. Let me soften the question. How many of you think that all people are sometimes bad? Okay. We are all human, we make mistakes. How many of you think that some people are always bad? No? Okay. It's true. I was trying to do mediation between two devotees. And I was trying to tell one devotee that actually that other person was not there. I was saying, deep down he's a very good person. So this other person said, it's not what is deep down I am concerned with. It's what I'm concerned with all around it. And that's terrible. So sometimes it happens that, okay, it's very difficult for us as human beings to even reconcile with the idea that somebody might be innately bad. So we would like to believe that people are basically good. And we would like to believe that even if people do bad things, there is some reason why they do bad things. But the fact is that people do bad things. The fact is that we ourselves do bad things at times. Now when such bad things happen, are those bad things also God's plan? Now, did God want those bad people to do bad things? What do you think?
It's our karma.
Okay. It's our karma.
Coming back.
And that's a serious statement. Let's come back to that statement right now. We'll come back to it. But let's focus on that those people right now. Let's see, there are three factors over here. Say, I am here, the other person is here, and Krishna is up here somewhere. So now when some people are hurting me, so is their hurting me, does God want them to hurt me? Okay. How many of you feel yes? How many of you feel no? Okay. So this is for yes or no? Okay. How many feel that God wanted them to do those things? Okay. That's one. How many feel no? Okay. Yeah. How many of you don't know? Yeah, it's a difficult questions. But broadly speaking, we could say that if we say that God gets people to do bad things, then that would make God a bad person. Now we could say, okay, we might have deserved it because of our past karma. But are those people hurting us because we did some past karma? Maybe we say, I never did anything bad to you. Why are you treating me like this? Isn't it? So are those people used as unwitting instruments by God to level the karmic score? But then is that person responsible or not? To give it a little more provocative spin to it. So, say consider in the Mahabharata, Draupadi is dishonored or attempted to be dishonored, and even the attempt is a dishonor in itself. She was attempted to be disrobed. Now, who tried to disrobe her? Dushasana. Dushasana was a vile creature, and he tried to horrendously abuse and violate her. Now, do you think Krishna wanted Dushasana to do that?
Yes.
Krishna wanted Dushasana to do that. So, in one sense, Krishna only got Dushasana to do that, and then Krishna only came to help her. Is it? Yeah, I mean, I am not mocking this answer. I'm just questioning. Is that what we are implying? So, in the Bhagavad-gita, Krishna says, Gahana karmano gati. The way karma works is very difficult to understand. And what the scripture says, that whatever action happens in the world, whether it is, say, something which somebody else does to us, let's focus on that right now. Now, what people do, it is God filtered. It goes through the filter of God's sanction. Krishna in the Bhagavad-gita says, Upadrashta Anumantacha. I am the overseer and I am the permitter. So, just like we filter something. Some things we let out of the filter, some things we don't let out of the filter. Now, is it that everything that is out of the filter is something that we want? We may want water to be completely 100% pure. But getting 100% pure water might be next to impossible. We might use some kind of filter that may purify maybe 98%. Most of the very toxic things are purified. Some things remain. So whatever happens, it goes through the filter of God's permission. But that does not mean that that is God's intention. There are two different things over here. That whatever happens in life, it could be God's intention, that is the most positive, that Krishna wanted it to happen. But it could also be God's permission. Permission means that I don't want you to do it, but you want to do it, then I'll let you do it. So if we consider when Krishna went as a peace messenger to Duryodhan before the Kurukshetra war, to try to prevent the war. Now, was it Krishna's plan that Duryodhan not listen to him? Krishna tried his best. If you read the negotiation that Krishna did, Krishna used every possible strategy. And the negotiation failed not because Krishna lacked skill. The negotiation failed because Duryodhan lacked conscience. Duryodhan just had no sense of, not that he's a fool. He was in his own way a perverted, intelligent person. But he had no sense of right or wrong. And he just completely believed that his cause was right. And that's why he rejected Krishna. So, now there are some things that God allows to happen. And now Krishna is so expert that something might not be what he wanted us to do. But, or wanted us to do, or wanted someone else to do to us. But Krishna is so expert that he can use those events also in his plan. So now, in one sense, let's take the example of, I'll come back to Dushasana a little later. Let's take the example of Krishna himself going as a peace messenger. Krishna went to pursue peace and he failed. Now we say, can God fail? God is supposed to be all powerful. How can God fail? One of the names of the Lord in the scriptures is Satya Sankalpa. Satya Sankalpa means whatever he resolves, he makes it happen. His resolve turns true. So how could Krishna fail? In his mission to seek peace, how could he fail? So that's where, when we talk about God's plan, and if you consider Krishna's plan, it is not one fixed, it is not one narrow lane. The things have to go along this way only. And if things don't go in this way, then everything is lost. It is a broad direction. So Krishna is expert enough that he can make his things move in that direction through plan A, or he can have plan B. And he can have Z and he can go further also. So Krishna is expert enough to include our use or misuse of free will within his plan. So what does this mean? See, before the night when Krishna went for peace negotiations, at that time Vidura talked with him. And Vidura said, Krishna was staying in Vidura's house, which is not a very opulent house. Although he was born to royalty, he was a stepson. So he was not exactly given royal facility. So Vidura was sitting with Krishna and says, Keshava, why have you come here? You know Duryodhana is not to listen to you. He says, I've heard rumors that he's even planning to arrest you. He said, I have seen one humiliation and dishonor in that assembly. And it torments me till this day. If I have to see another humiliation over there, I will not be able to live. Whose humiliation was he talking about? Draupadi's. The most traumatic event over there. And now, he's saying, Krishna, why have you come here? So, what does Krishna reply? Krishna says, Oh Vidura, I know that Duryodhana is not going to listen to me. But, while I would like the war to be avoided and things to be settled peacefully, but I also want the world to know that this war is caused not by the Pandavas, but by the Kauravas. So Krishna's plan A was have peace. But if the Kauravas don't listen, see, Krishna's plan does not necessarily require every single living entity to comply with it. Because he has given us free will. And based on our free will, we can act in particular ways. So, when we act in particular ways, sometimes a plan A may not work. So Duryodhana may not listen to Krishna. What is Krishna's plan B? Plan B is that I make sure who is responsible for the war becomes very clear. And that is what exactly happened. When Duryodhana said, I will not give enough land to put even the tip of a needle through. If that had been the age of social media, that would have become a viral Insta reel. What a dialogue. Isn't it? Now, if you want to understand the contextual impact of the dialogue, there are different ways of saying no. Say if we invite someone to, or someone invites us to their home for some ceremony. Now, we don't want to go. So, we make some excuse. Now, we make an excuse. They know we are making an excuse. And we know that they know we are making an excuse. But, at least for courtesy, we try to make an excuse. But suppose, let's convert the situation. We invite somebody for a program. And we know that they're making an excuse. But instead of making an excuse, they say, even if I die, my dead body will never come to your ceremony. Now that is not just a no to the invitation. That is a kick in the face of the inviter. This is what Duryodhana does. And then on top of that, when Duryodhana tries to arrest Krishna, that is against all codes of how these messengers are to be treated. So by that he makes it clear. So from Krishna's perspective, Duryodhana's defiance, his arrogance, plays perfectly into Krishna's plan. That his rejection of Krishna's proposal, his attempt to arrest Krishna, Krishna couldn't have provided the world better evidence of who is causing this war. Isn't it? So in that sense, Krishna's plan does not necessarily depend on each living being acting in a particular way. Krishna is resourceful, and Krishna can have a plan A if we act in a particular way. Krishna can have a plan B if we act in a different way. We means not just you or I, but general human beings. So that's why now when Duryodhana did something, did Krishna want that to happen? No, Krishna didn't want Duryodhana to do like that. But it was God filtered. It was not God intended. God filtered means nothing can happen to me which God is not aware of, which Krishna has not allowed to happen. But Krishna allowing something to happen is different from Krishna wanting something to happen. These are two significantly different things. Now, why are we talking about this at this particular point? That when we say that this is a part of God's plan, that does not necessarily mean that exactly things are happening the way they are and that's how we should let them happen passively. There is a part that we also need to play. So, I'll give an example to illustrate this concept. Have any of you heard of this thing? GPS. I was giving a talk to youth in America, and one youth said, have you heard of anyone who has not heard of GPS? So I'm talking here about God's positioning system. That the God's positioning system is just like our global GPS, but it's much better. Now, imagine, say, you wanted to come for this program. And say this first time you're coming here, and the GPS says turn right. And you turn left. And what happens? Does the GPS say, you didn't obey me, get lost? No, GPS doesn't say that. It reroutes. Now suppose GPS is telling us something but we are not sure. So we ask someone. and that person had a deliberate intention to mislead us. And so we turn in the wrong direction. And even then, what does GPS do? It still records. So whether it is our mistake or somebody else's mistake or somebody else's malicious intention, whatever it is. So there is no turn that we may take that will throw us out of the GPS itself. That Google says, now we may lose the connection, but GPS has got all the territory mapped out. Now maybe there will be something in the Sahara desert or somewhere, maybe the territory is not mapped out with GPS. But in God's positioning system, everything is mapped out. So even if we take a wrong turn, Krishna can reroute and can get us to the destination. So even if somebody does something bad to us, even that Krishna can reroute and get us to the right destination. So that's what I mean by plan A, plan B, plan C. Now, if we are at this place, and if we are at place A, and we want to go to place B. Now we could say there is a straight route to go there. Now there could be we take a detour and come back and we go there. Now somebody might take many detours, and that journey might be a sine wave, and they might come there. Now somebody might just take U-turns, and they may take many U-turns and it may take a little more time for them to come there. But no matter what kind of turns they take, they can still get there. That the whole territory is mapped out. And in that sense, no one is ever outside of God's plan. Neither our own mistakes nor others' mistakes or misdeeds. When I use these two words, mistakes and misdeeds, what is the difference? Mistakes and misdeeds. Is there any difference?
Mistake is a wrong doing done deliberately. Misdeed just happens. Oh, sorry.
That is a mistake.
Maybe, yeah.
Okay, yeah. So you could say mistake is often accidental.
Yeah.
And a misdeed is intentional. Somebody wanted to hurt us. Now whether it is a mistake or a misdeed, either way, Krishna's plan can still accommodate that. Now this does not mean that the mistakes or misdeeds don't matter. This does not mean that we should not learn and try to avoid mistakes and misdeeds. This does not mean that if bad people are doing mistakes or people are doing misdeeds, we should not try to stop or correct them. There is work at that level, and I'll talk about that work soon. But my point is, whatever mistake or misdeed may be done by us or be done to us, we are not thrown out of God's plan. Now, every mistake or misdeed will come with a cost. Now, each wrong turn we take will mean that it may take longer for us to reach the destination. It may not more time, more price, it will be more complexity. The route is not that easy. So it's not that mistakes and misdeeds don't matter. So they matter, but they are never fatal. They are consequential, but they are not fatal. The consequence is there. So mistakes and misdeeds, both of them, they are consequential. There will be some consequence of that. It's not that whatever mistake I make, I say, oh, it's all a part of God's plan. No, it could be our foolishness. Krishna is so expert that even if it is our foolishness, even if it is our maliciousness, whatever it is, Krishna can still make sure that his plan works through it. So the mistakes are never fatal. They are consequential, but never fatal. So this is what we need to appreciate. That everything that happens is a part of Krishna's plan. That does not mean, so when we talk about God's plan, I'll conclude this point and we'll read the next part. God's plan, it is everything that happens. Everything that happens. There are two ways of looking at it. One is that everything that happens, is God's plan. Is within God's plan. Which of these you think is more precise? Second one. Tasyanuvito Rajan. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, when Bhishma is guiding Yudhishthira, at that time Yudhishthira has got a severe attack of guilt. He feels that this whole war happened because of me to make me a king. And in that war, he lost so much. He lost all his sons who were brutally killed by Ashwatthama. He lost Abhimanyu before that, and he felt mortally responsible for that. Because the Chakravyuh was made to trap him. And he said Abhimanyu got trapped inside. And then finally, when his mother told him that Karna was actually your brother, that was the final blow for him. He said that my brother had an opportunity to kill me and he didn't kill me. And I longed to kill him. And when Arjuna killed him, I celebrated his death. What kind of person am I? So, he gets such an attack of conscience. I'm not worth becoming a king. And then at that time, Bhishma tells him, everything is within Krishna's plan. Tasya anubhito rajan. So, we don't know if everything is God's plan, but everything is within God's plan. So, I'll give another example to complete this point. Let's say, if in a school, so, and there's a plan and purpose. A slight difference. If you're not confused, then I'll make this more confusing now. But I hope this will clarify. See, what is the purpose of a school? The school's purpose is that students study, students learn, students graduate from one class to the next, get promoted from one class to the next class, they graduate from the school. That is the purpose. Now, if some students don't study, if some students don't become good enough get good enough mastery in the subject, they don't pass the exams, then what happens? Students fail. Now, if they fail, the school has a plan for those students. Okay, fail one subject, then you go to the next class, but you do this particular subject again. If you fail a lot of subjects, then maybe you will do the same year again. If you're failing repeatedly, then maybe you need to go to some other school. But the education system has a plan. So the purpose is that the students, we consider the plan and the purpose, they're not exactly the same thing. The purpose is always positive. That is, the students make the right choice, students study, and students go to the next class. So students pass. That is the purpose of the school. But there is a plan for students who fail. Now this does not mean that the school wants the students to fail. The purpose of the school is not that students fail. The purpose is the students pass. But for students who fail, there is a plan. So like that, Krishna's purpose is not that we do mistakes or misdeeds or others do mistakes and misdeeds. Krishna's purpose is that we act wisely, others act wisely. But if we act unwisely or others act unwisely, Krishna still has a plan. I hope this difference is clear. The difference will appreciate that everything is God filtered. Nothing can happen to us that is not allowed by God. But that does not mean that it is intended by God. Okay. So, can we go ahead and read the next paragraph here? Yeah. Who would like to read? Someone else? Maybe some of the Vaishnavis would like to read. Anyone other? Mataji would like to read. Yeah, you have, can you give the mic then?
Second paragraph?
Yes, please. Can you give the mic then?
When I make plans, even if those plans are for your service, I often get so caught up in analyzing strengths and weaknesses, opportunities and threats at the material level that I forget or overlook one factor that overrides all others, your supreme will.
Yes. So it is that what does Krishna want me to do? There's one thing is whatever has happened to us, when we look at the past, we need to get a sense of calmness and closure. That Krishna had some plan over here. Whether it is I who made a mistake, it is others who made a mistake. So what was the acronym we were discussing? ACT. A was what? Appreciate. So now C is contribute. Contribute means that each one of us has to play our part in Krishna's plan. Krishna's plan is not just about things that happen to us. Krishna also wants us to do things. God's plan can be about things that happen to us, but Krishna's plan can also be about what happens through us. What happens to us and what happens through us. And in fact, the Gita's focus is this second part. What happens through us. Sometimes in many shops there is this Gita Sar. In Hindi it is there. Sometimes I see in English translation also. Hindi se jo hua, wo acha hua. Jo ho raha hai, wo acha ho raha hai. Jo hone wala hai, wo bhi acha hi hoga. Whatever happened was good. Whatever is happening is good. Whatever will happen will also be good. Well, I have read the Gita dozens of times. I have recited the Gita many, many times. I have not found a single verse in the Gita which comes close to this. It's a nice sounding thought, but it is not the message of the Gita. Because the Gita's emphasis is not on what happens to us. It's more about what happens through us. Because Arjuna is undecided. And Arjuna has to make a decision of what I'm going to do. So to tell somebody for whom something brutal has happened, and whatever happens is good. No, life is terrible and horrible things can happen in the world. So the focus is, okay, there is some plan of God in this. And then the question comes, what do I do now? So maybe I took a wrong turn and I need to reroute. But how do I reroute? How does, from here, how do I move towards Krishna? So that is the key part. This is contribute. Now, many of you know that I have polio. I need crutches for walking. So when I was about 1, I think I mentioned this yesterday. Did I mention this? No. Okay, so when I was 1, my mother took me, I was just in a small town in Maharashtra in India. My mother took me to a nearby clinic to get the polio vaccine. And among all the vaccines, the polio vaccine is considered one of the safest, most effective. Polio is almost eradicated now. But the clinic where my mother had taken me, because it's a small town, there's a power supply outage. And the fridge in which the vaccine had been kept had its temperature raised because there was no power supply. And because of the rising of the temperature, the germs in the vaccine multiplied. And neither the attendant nor the doctor noticed that. And when that vaccine was given to me, because the dosage of the germs was too high, instead of preventing polio, it ended up causing polio. Now, I don't remember any of this. I was about 1, I was just learning to walk. And I fell down, I could not walk normally thereafter. But my first memory of this is, I was about 2.5 or 3. And at that time, a distant relative had come to meet us. And she was consoling my mother, saying, "Oh, so sad, your son got polio." And I remember my mother's voice, very calm, clear, confident. She said, whatever he lacks physically, God will provide him intellectually. I don't know why she said that. Maybe she saw some intellectual ability in me in that time, or it was her hope. But somehow that statement stayed with me, not the God part, the intellectual part initially. And as I grew up, I couldn't play outdoor games like other kids could play. So I could say that life is unfair. And that's true. Life is unfair. But then as I started reading and studying, I noticed that I could read quite fast, I could remember well, I could articulate clearly. So somewhere at the back of my mind it settled that, okay, I didn't do anything to deserve this physical disability, but I didn't do anything to deserve this intellectual ability either. So life is unfair, that is true. But in the big picture, life is fairly unfair. Fairly unfair means that sometimes we get worse than what we deserve, and sometimes we do get better than what we deserve. We all say that sometimes we have good luck, good fortune. Sometimes things just work out. So now it is important that we learn to focus. Now, if we focus on how life is unfair, now basically when we are saying life is unfair and we are fixating on that, that means either God is unfair or there is no God and life is chaotic. Life is just like a cosmic lottery and we got the bad end of the deal. So, is life unfair? Yes, from this life's perspective, life is unfair. But, is life fair? Yes, both are true. If we fixate on how life is unfair, we'll be filled with negative emotions, we'll become resentful. If we focus on how life is fair, we can become resourceful. Okay, what is good in my life? What can I make the best out of the situation I am in right now? So when we talk about contributing, how do we contribute? So one of you mentioned this point that, that if somebody does something bad to us, it is our own karma coming back to us. And yes, there is some truth to that. But the Gita's focus is not so much on karma, in the sense of past karma, what happened. Why something happened, that is not so much the focus as what we should do. The Gita's focus is not so much on karma. By karma I refer to past karma. The Gita's focus is on dharma. Dharma means what is the right thing for me to do right now. It's my present dharma. Okay, now that this has happened, the philosophy of karma can be used to come to peace with what has happened. But what I am to do right now, that requires careful deliberation. So I have a maternal uncle in America. He was among the very early Indians who emigrated to America and settled. So when he came to know that I had got polio, he was very angry. And he told my parents, he told my father, you should sue the doctor. Now, my father is a very peaceful person. His favorite verse from the Bhagavad-gita is Sthita Pragya. Like, he's a very stoic person. He said that the Indian legal system is such that before the court case comes for hearing, probably we'll have white hair. Now that the polio is already there, what can you do about it? We just accept it. So, I have a friend in Florida. He's also a godbrother. I mean, he's also a disciple of my spiritual master, Radhanath Maharaj. He told me quite a sad story, but I think an instructive story. When his wife was pregnant and there were some complications, so things were handled in ICU, and the doctors, the caregivers basically, they made some mess. And it's not malpractice, but definitely negligence. And when the daughter was born, she had cerebral palsy and several other complications. So then he wrote to the spiritual master and he asked Radhanath Maharaj that, Maharaj, should I accept this as my karma or should I sue the hospital for what has happened? So Maharaj replied that now what has happened, you cannot change it. It is your responsibility to take care of your daughter now. At the same time, for discharging this responsibility, if you can get any help, you should seek that help. So, America is probably among the most litigious countries in the world. Canada also to some extent, I do not know. But I was in Los Angeles and there I saw a big advertisement. It typed just 3 words in that advertisement. Who hurt you? You tell us who hurt you and we will sue you and we will get settlement. So he sued the hospital and they settled out of court because clearly the blame was on their part. And he's got a fairly good financial arrangement for the lifelong care of his daughter. That doesn't, of course, change the fact that she will have challenges lifelong and they will have challenges. But the fact is that even if something is our past karma, maybe we don't know what it is, but the focus is not on what is whose past karma. The focus is on what is our present dharma and how can we best do that dharma. So thinking that something is past karma does not mean passivity. Oh, everything is past karma, so just like if bad people are doing bad things, so just accept it. No. You have to consider what is my dharma and how can I best do my dharma. So now, dharma can also be contextual. Again, America, the legal systems are that you can easily sue. In India, it would have been very, very difficult. So that's why one of the principles is gahana dharma, that the karma, dharma se tattvam nihitam goya hai. Dharma is not so easy to understand. That when I am doing something has happened to me, okay, I can come to peace with what has happened by understanding that this is still a part of Krishna's plan. No matter how bad something has happened, it's not going to throw me out of Krishna's plan. It's not that I am all alone abandoned because this person did this to me or because I did this to myself. Whatever it is. That my life is still within Krishna's plan. But then, what am I meant to do right now? For that, we need to use our God-given intelligence. One point I was making yesterday was that when we are trying to respond to life, there is our own buddhi, our intelligence. With our intelligence, by intelligence I mean not just analytical intelligence, but any kind of expertise we may have. With our intelligence, we get some Shakti. And we have our faith that arises from our Bhakti. So if we consider 4 quadrants, this is the best quadrant to be situated in. We understand that whatever has happened, there is God's plan. I have that faith over there. But within that God's plan, what am I meant to do? For that, I need to use my intelligence. I need to use what abilities I have. So that's why first point is appreciate, then is contribute. So how do I contribute over here? Now, when you say how do I contribute, what does that mean? Okay, in this situation, how can I move ahead? How can I make a positive difference? If Krishna is our ultimate well-wisher, Krishna wants things to be better. And what can I do to make things better? So, with respect to determining dharma, now how do we, as I said, the philosophy of the Gita is focused on dharma. So we look at past karma to come to peace with what has happened. But that doesn't necessarily mean that we passively accept whatever is happening. Maybe something needs to be fixed. Now, there is a well-known verse in the Bhagavad-gita which talks about tolerance. Tams titikshasva bharata. That is 2:14 in the Bhagavad-gita. Matra sparshastu kaunteya shitosh sukha dukkadaha agam apayino nityas tams titikshasva bharata. Now Krishna is telling you tolerate. But what is he telling tolerate? Is he telling that, oh, the Kauravas did so many atrocities towards you, and it's all your past karma, just tolerate it and don't fight? Is that the implication over there? No. His implication, what is he to tolerate? Tolerate the pain of fighting against Bhishma and Drona. This was no small pain for Arjuna. Because Bhishma and Drona were not just some elders. These were the people from whom he had learned archery. These were the people for whose pleasure he had learned archery. And now he had to use those archery skills against them, and not just against them for exhibition or entertainment. Just a fight till death. He just didn't want to do that. But Krishna said, it's a hard decision. You have to do it. Because they have chosen the wrong side. And So tolerance, when we say tolerate, okay, what to tolerate, what not to tolerate. That is a decision which requires intelligence. That's it. Before Krishna says Tam Satiksha Subharata, in 2:30, he gives intelligence. That is, Dehi nosmin yatha dehi. That verse. Essentially what it means is, intelligence tells us, Srila Prabhupada explains intelligence in a very simple way. He says, to see things in their proper perspective. What that means, proper perspective? Perspective is when you have a particular vision of looking at things. So we understand what are the big things in our life and what are the small things in our life. So intelligence helps us to understand what are the big things and what are the small things. And then what does tolerance do? Tolerance helps us to keep big things big. And tolerance helps us to keep small things small. So we want to keep big things big and keep small things small. Say now you come for this talk and you prefer to maybe sit on a chair. Maybe it's a little uncomfortable for you to sit on the floor. Now, you might be a little uncomfortable, but you think that, okay, this class is only going to go over 6 hours more. You know, it will go for half an hour, 1 hour more, that's all. I can bear that. This is a small thing. I come here, I want to learn something useful. I want to be part of a spiritual community. So, okay, tolerating the discomfort of sitting on the floor is a small thing. I can deal with it. I was in Australia once, and generally after my class, I ask the audience, what did you like? Anything you found interesting? So there's some people who give very thoughtful replies. So there's one person, one young man in Australia, he gives thoughtful insights. So he came and he was sitting behind. So that my class was also on tolerance. So I asked him, how did you find the class? He said, normally your class gives me a lot of intellectual workout. He says, you have to think a lot. Gives a lot of intellectual stimulation. But today, the class gave me an opportunity for practical application also. How? I started thinking, what do you mean? My class was on tolerance. So are you meaning that you had to tolerate my class? So, in the Jewish tradition, there is a saying, have your ears heard what your mouth has said? Sometimes we will not think about what we are saying before we say it. See, some people think before they talk. And some people talk to think. By talking, their thinking starts. And that's why they may change their opinion. But anyway, when he saw my face, facial expression, he said, oh, actually, what happened was, I came a little late, so I was sitting behind. And when I was sitting behind, at that time, the person sitting next to me was constantly talking on his phone. And initially, I was very annoyed. I was about to tell that person, if you want to talk on the phone, please go out and talk. But then I thought, this is a class on tolerance. So I should tolerate. And therefore I tolerated. But because I was tolerating and constantly the phone call was coming, messages were coming, and the ping was coming, the ring was coming, so I couldn't really hear much of the class. So I told him, with all due respect, whenever somebody starts with a sentence with all due respect, what is going to come after that is not going to be very respectful. So I said, with all due respect, that is not tolerance, that is impotence. If you come for a talk, come to hear a talk, hearing the talk is the big thing. And if somebody is obstructing you in doing that, then what is the point of coming for the talk? Either you go and sit somewhere else, either tell them to go away. There are some things which need to be changed. So, if we let, in the name of tolerance, let small things become big and big things become small, that is not tolerance. That is impotence. So, now tolerance is required because sometimes we may overreact. So, that will make us intolerant. Small issue, big problem. It's not that somebody is, say, a class is going on and some parents have a young small baby and the baby is crying. If the baby cries, it's a disturbance for everyone. But if the baby is crying, I yell at the mother. control your baby or get out of here. Now what will happen is, even the baby goes away, at the end of the class, the only thing that the people will remember is the way I yelled at the mother. So, obviously, it's a small thing. I need to be able to tolerate it. Now, ideally, the mother herself should take the baby to another room or whatever. If she doesn't, then I need to tell gently, can you take care of your baby? Maybe you need to go to a separate room. I need to be polite. It's a small thing. If it's becoming a big thing, we need to address it. But sometimes in addressing a small thing, we make it a big thing. That is a problem. So, here we can go to two extremes. What is not tolerance? In tolerance, if we make a small thing big, that is a problem. Making a small thing big is intolerance. And this is the general problem most of us have. Life is difficult, life is annoying, and there are some problems which come and go. Don't make a small thing a big thing. That's tolerance. But on the other hand, if we let a big thing become small, then that is not intolerance or tolerance, that is impotence. So if in the name of tolerance, I let a baby cry throughout the class, and neither I do anything nor the organizers do anything, then the only thing the audience hears throughout the class is the baby's crying. And something has to be done about it. If I don't do anything, that's impotence. So, in between these two is, we act in such a way that we keep the big things big and we keep the small things small. So, this is tolerance. So, now, what does this mean for how we contribute to Krishna's plan? See, Krishna's plan is not one narrow direction. We have free will and we are meant to use our free will appropriately. So, when initially Duryodhana tried to poison Bhima, at that time, Bhima survived miraculously and he came back and he wanted to teach Duryodhana a lesson and beat him to pieces. Now, Yudhishthira told him, Dad, calm down. He said that we are new over here. We don't know who will believe you or who will not believe you. It will just be your word against his word. And if the whole larger family or community goes against us, we'll be splitting the family. Let's not do that. Maybe he's just feeling insecure. Maybe we'll be cautious. Maybe this will pass. Now, if you look at the Pandavas, actually, it's difficult to imagine a set of brothers who are as different as Yudhishthira and Bhima. Yudhishthira, both of them were Kshatriyas, but Yudhishthira was more like a Brahman Kshatriya. Brahman Kshatriya means what? He was very pacific. He bent backwards to avoid conflict. Now, on the other hand, Bhima was a Kshatriya. Could call him a Kshatriya squared. So he was itching for fighting to show his prowess. So now who is right, who is wrong? Now we could, as they say, hindsight is always 20/20. Maybe we could say at that time if Bhima had dealt with Duryodhana might not have done all the further atrocities that he did. But who knows, if Bhima had beaten up Duryodhana might have done greater atrocities faster also. So we don't know. In life, how do we deal with particular situations? So life is complex and we are finite beings, we are fallible beings. So we can't always know what is the right thing to do. But we use our God-given intelligence and we make certain decisions. Even when Krishna was with Arjuna in the Kurukshetra war, it is not that Krishna was micro-controlling everything that Arjuna was doing. It is not that before shooting every arrow, Arjuna asked, Krishna, do I have your permission to shoot this arrow? No. It's not like that. He was using his intelligence and he was doing the best that he could. Now there are certain major decision points where Krishna did intervene and guide. But in general, while being a part of Krishna's plan, Arjuna was his own person. Yudhishthira was his own person, Bhima was his own person. So we need to use our intelligence to contribute. So when we face a difficult situation, how do we contribute? In general, for all of us, we have a certain set where we belong to. See? Now the word dharma has many different meanings. I said we focus on dharma. Dharma, one of the meanings of dharma is harmonious belonging. Harmonious belonging means that each one of us belongs to a larger unit. So when we belong to a larger unit, each one of us needs to belong properly. That means we do our part in the larger unit. And then the larger unit needs to do its part for us. So for example, you're sitting for this class right now. Now, your dharma in this class is to sit and be attentive as much as possible, or at least not be a distraction for others. See, every one of you has come for this class. Do you know your neighbors? The person sitting next to you, you may not know.
No.
But every one of you is quite confident, and the person sitting next to you is not going to turn on you and slap you in the face. Don't get any ideas. Now, is it possible? Well, anything can be said to be possible. But is it probable? Very unlikely. If somebody has come for a spiritual talk like this, we expect that they have that level of impulse control, that they have that level of culture, that they know how to belong to a class like this. So, you as individuals are a part of a larger whole. You need to play your part by belonging harmoniously. But dharma is not just individual. Like if I am a part of a larger whole, I am representing a tradition, and you want to be a part of the tradition, you want to learn some wisdom from the tradition, then I have to play my part and I should speak something meaningful. Now, if you are investing your time in coming here, then you are doing your part and I should also be doing my part. So in that sense, dharma is harmonious belonging, where the part contributes to the whole and the whole reciprocates by giving something to the part. Like if we drive on the road, then we are being a part of the road transport system. And then our dharma is to follow the rules of traffic. So we drive. In Canada, you drive on which side of the road? So, which is it? Right. So, America it is also right. India it is left. So the left is right in America. Okay. But say, now in India, so left is right in India, sorry. So now, whatever the road transport system, we need to follow the rules of that. That is our dharma. Now, when we do our dharma, at that time, the larger unit also should be able to reciprocate. If, for example, people from certain communities are pulled over more than others, that, they look at the ethnicity, and even a small crime, they give a large punishment. Or somebody from a particular ethnicity, if you commit a big crime, also no punishment. Then that would be discrimination. So dharma means harmonious belonging. And Krishna uses the dharma in both senses. In 2.7 the Bhagavad-gita, Arjuna is asking, Puchhami tvam dharma sammudha cheta. I want to know what is the right way to belong. But then in 4.8, when Krishna says, Dharma samsthapanarthaya sambhavami yuge yuge. There he's talking about, and I come to establish dharma, that means that I come to fix the system. That the system itself is wrong, where wicked people have grabbed power. And Krishna says, I come to fix the system. So dharma is both what the individual does for the system and what the system, the larger whole, does for the individual. So both are parts of dharma. In politics there is right and left. So in general, the political right is more conservative. And their focus is individual, you take responsibility, you fit into the system. and you grow through the system. The left is more liberal, it's more radical. It says the system is the problem, we need to fix the system. So the left is more about social justice and social change. So the right is more, if a person has done a crime, you are responsible, you go to jail. The left is more, look at the background of the person. Maybe that person had a very hard childhood. Maybe that person didn't have any good options. And that's why the person became a criminal. Now who is right? Well, it depends. Sometimes the individual needs to be changed, to change himself. And sometimes the system needs to change. So why am I talking about this? This is to make a point about how we are to contribute. So if something bad has happened, so for example, going back to the incident of what my father did, whereas what this devotee did. Now, in that case, in the case of India, the system is such that there's no chance to fix the system. So, okay, we just fit into it, make the best of what has happened. But in the West, where individuals can sue the doctor, sue the hospital, then we get the system to pay a price. So it depends. So dharma is not one thing. Dharma can mean different things at different times. So now I'll make a little more subtle point, but it's not be too difficult. Okay. This dharma is a problem over here. This computer seems to be okay. So I talked about first is appreciate. Appreciate that nothing that happens is outside Krishna's plan. And then we talk about how we can contribute. That's what we're talking about right now. Now when we contribute, there are different ways we may decide to contribute. So broadly there are three ways. This is not sequential, but this is just analysis. I use the acronym MET. When we meet the situation properly, when we contemplate the situation, we can decide what we want to do for it. We can mitigate the situation. Mitigate means, like go back to the earlier example, we fix the system. We fix the system. Then second is, we may emigrate. I don't want to be a part of the system at all. I'll just leave from here. So the third can be, we may tolerate. So mitigate, emigrate, tolerate. All three are possible. So for example, if you consider the Pandavas, initially when Duryodhana did something to them, Yudhishthira, what was his response? Tolerate. And yeah, sometimes bad things happen. They decided, we still want to be a part of this family. We don't want to make a mess. They make a big thing out of it. So then, the next time, unfortunately, what happened? Duryodhana did something bigger. Initially, he tried to kill Bhima. Then he tried to kill their entire family, including their mother also. The warriors sometimes fight against warriors. Of course, warriors are also not meant to kill other warriors, like backstab them or kill them in the dark. It's a fair fight. But generally, warriors are not meant to kill women or children. This was an increasingly heinous act. Some of the Pandavas survived over there, but they decided that this is a bigger conspiracy. He could not have done this without his father's consent. So therefore, it's better let's leave from here now. So they emigrated. What did emigration means? That they hid incognito for some time. Until they were able to get the hand of Draupadi in Swayamvar. And now Draupadi was no ordinary girl. She was the sole daughter of a powerful rival king, Drupada. And that meant that the Dhritarashtra could no longer neglect them. The Dhritarashtra decided to give them half of the kingdom. But then also there was unfairness. He gave them like a wasteland, an overgrown forest. Like a parent has two companies, and I'll give one company to each child. But one company is flourishing, the other is going on the verge of bankruptcy. I'll give one company to both of you. Is that fair? Well, to call that fair is an insult to the word fair. Isn't it? But he did that. Again, the Pandavas accepted that. They emigrated. And they made that into a flourishing metropolis. They made that became capital. So the Pandavas, okay, I don't want to mess with this system. I don't want to create a big issue. I'll go somewhere else. But then, after that, when the gambling match, they tried to steal away their kingdom. They tried to dishonor Draupadi. And even after going for exile, when they tried to dishonor Krishna also, the Pandavas realized enough is enough. That these people are not going to change. That's when they decided to mitigate. So they decided to fight. Now, each of these can be done positively or it can be done negatively. Now, mitigate is not the same as retaliate. In mitigate, the focus is on fixing the issue. In retaliating it's getting back at the person. So the Pandavas did not take out their anger on Dhritarashtra afterwards. Or Dhritarashtra was a part of what Duryodhana did. But they understood Dhritarashtra was weak and he was, because of his attachment to Duryodhana, they did something. They still respected him as an elder. So they didn't retaliate. They didn't develop a vengeful mentality. Now, emigrate is also not run away. When we are running away, the focus is just going away from here to somewhere else. When we emigrate, we just decide that I don't want to get involved in this. I have something better to do in my life. If this system doesn't work for me, but I'm not running away from the system, I want to go to a better place. I want to do something valuable with my life. And maybe I can do it at another place. So emigrate is not running away. And tolerate is also not suffocate. Suffocate means that we are not able to do anything. Say suppose we are in a job where the work culture is a bit unpleasant. Maybe the boss is a little over demanding and rude. Now we may decide that okay, all that is not good, but it's paying me well. That actually I can get it can be a good addition to my CV over here. And maybe after a few years, after I have worked in this job, I can go take some other job. So we may decide to tolerate it, because we may decide at time that the fact that I'm working in this company and getting this kind of pay is the big thing for me. And the work environment is a small thing for me. But if the work culture, the work environment is just leading to stripping away our peace of mind completely, and instead of having peace of mind, our mind is in pieces. And then when we come back home, all those pieces are thrown at everyone else at home. Then maybe it's not worth it. Maybe you need to emigrate. Now if somebody wants to decide, okay, I'm going to complain against this, I'm going to escalate this issue, that's, if you want to do it, that can also be an option. So it is done with a purpose, in a purposeful way. So in psychology there are three terms which I use: fight, flight, and freeze. So we don't want either of these, in any of these three. We are not simply fighting for the sake of fighting. We are not freezing, we are not fleeing. What are we doing is, when we appreciate and then contribute, there is a greater focus over here. Okay, what is the best way I can do my dharma in this situation? What is the best way I can contribute to make things better? What is the best way I can be a part of Krishna's plan? I can pursue Krishna's plan over here. Say, if we put our child in a top school, and the child is repeatedly doing very poorly over there. Now, you may decide, push our child, come on, work hard, study, discipline yourself. But maybe it is that a child's IQ level is say 120. And that is a school for students with the IQ level of 160. It's like a special school, not a special needs school, a special school really. Then we may decide that pushing our child so much is just not going to work. The child is trying the best, but it's just overwhelming. Then maybe put the child in a more normal school. So sometimes we need to push our child to be more disciplined. Sometimes we tell our child, no, we'll take you to another school where the demand is not so much. So things can be, so there's no one path predetermined for dharma. The focus of dharma is that whatever is the situation, I want to make things better. And more importantly, I want to make my consciousness better. And how that can be done? The dharma can vary from person to person. If we look at Srila Prabhupada's life, we'll see the same thing in Srila Prabhupada's life also. Initially, when he started his outreach, he built an organization called the League of Devotees in a place called Jhansi in India. And he put a lot of efforts in that. And he had I think the chief officer of Jhansi, with the governor of that particular state, he came for the inauguration of the institution. So it was quite a grand inauguration. But somehow, the people who had supported him turned against him. They said, we want this for some other place, we don't want this for a temple. Now Prabhupada could have fought against it, but Prabhupada decided it's not worth it. He said two reasons. He said this Jhansi is not a very big place, and his Guru Maharaj wanted him to build centers in big places, and he felt that the people here are also not very committed. They have more of a pious sentiment to respect some sadhus, but they're not really spiritually interested or committed. So he emigrated from that place. So when he came to America, he was sponsored by Agarwal family, and it was a cross-cultural marriage. So Sally Agarwal was American, Gopal Agarwal was an Indian. He stayed at their home for a few days. And then they used to eat meat. In fact, they used to eat beef also. And the same fridge that Prabhupada would keep his bhoga, which he would cook and offer to Krishna. Prabhupada had his own arrangement he had for cooking. But in there he had to keep his bhoga where beef was also kept. And Sally Agarwal had some sensibility. She said, Swami, I'm sorry, but this is the only fridge we have. And she had bought into the myth that children require protein and the best source of protein is cow flesh. So they would give children beef broth at that time. So she said, this is the only fridge we have. And Prabhupada was very understanding. Prabhupada says, think nothing of it. Now, imagine subsequently, if there is the International Society for Krishna Consciousness established, and Prabhupada came to know that in a fridge, in a temple, there was meat. Would Prabhupada say, think nothing of it? Prabhupada said, think nothing except of it. How did this happen? Who allowed it to happen? Who made it? Who did it? Isn't it? But at that time, the Prabhupada saw the big thing is that I want to be in America and I want to do some outreach. And he soon, see, Prabhupada was not a very pushy person. He looked and he soon saw that these people who were hosting him were not really interested in becoming devotees. They hosted him as a courtesy to their father-in-law. And so Prabhupada saw that, okay, I'm going to be here for some time and let me just bear it. So he tolerated it. But later on, when he was building the Juhu temple, at that time, the owner of the land on which the Juhu temple was built was a double-dealing political kind of person. So he wanted to take the money and not give the land deeds. And at that time, Srila Prabhupada wrote to one of his life supporters, life members, he said, if he wants to steal Krishna's land, he will have to go over my dead body. And if you read the history of the Juhu temple's building, Prabhupada said, what? And not just metaphoric. The owner sent thugs to attack the devotees. And devotees had to deal with it all. So Prabhupada fought over there. So there what was he doing? Among these three? Mitigating. But there also Prabhupada did not retaliate. There was this Mr. N who passed away and then his wife tried to take it further and she sent thugs. But then she realized the whole thing not working. She came and signed the land deed for transfer. Prabhupada gave the money. And then she fell at Prabhupada's feet and says, please forgive me, Swami, for whatever happened. And Prabhupada was so forgiving and says, don't worry, you're just like my daughter. I'll take care of you. So Prabhupada was not vengeful. He was not vindictive. He was not revengeful. So it was more of mitigating rather than retaliating. So for all of us, when we deal with situations, dharma is not necessarily stereotyped for everyone. Each one of us in our particular situation, we need to decide how best can I move it. So it could, as I said, Krishna has plan A, plan B, plan C. So if somebody decides to mitigate a particular situation, is that Krishna's plan? Well, we can't know for sure. It's like when we are working in choosing to contribute, our contributing should be based on curiosity, not certainty. Curiosity means, with my intelligence, this is what I am trying out. You can pray to Krishna. Krishna, this is my understanding over here. And this understanding, this is what I think I should be doing. We can talk with, if we have devotee guides, we can talk with them. But we are open. This is my best intelligence. My best intelligence, this is what I am doing. If it works well and good. If it not, I am ready to change tack also. A devotee does not operate based on certainty. Some of the worst things in the human history have been done by people who were certain they were doing God's will. There are extremists who just kill ruthlessly and they think we are doing God's will. There are people who become very intolerant, maybe not at that extreme level, but sometimes people think they're doing God's will and they may become very rude with others. If somebody comes to a temple and say, sometimes people nowadays want to take selfies. So they want to take selfies with Krishna. And now we normally say, don't turn your back toward Krishna. You can take a picture of Krishna, but don't turn your back toward Krishna. So we asked this to Rahat Maharaj in Radha Gopinath temple. And if people want to take selfies, what should we do? So he said that, it's not good that people turn their back. But he said, if we tell them don't take a selfie, we can put a note over there that, and we can make that note reasonably prominent. But once we start telling people, we can't control who will tell people how. Some people get a lot of joy in catching people who are not following rules. Isn't it? And then telling them in such a way that, so that somehow in India, among Indians outside India also, there is a resurgence in spiritual interest among the youth. Young people, boys and girls, they may be in a relationship, but they also come together to temple. They want to spend some time there. So now, these people, when they come, it's good that they are coming. Now, it's not good that they turn their back towards the Lord, but which is more important? That they come to a temple and they keep coming to a temple, or that they come to a temple, they get a bad experience and they say, I'll never come to a temple again. Yad gatva nanivartanti. I'll go from here, never I'll come back. We don't want that to happen also. So the thing is, sometimes if I am convinced that this is the rule and you are violating the rule, and I become certain that I am doing God's will in telling you don't do this, I can become very, very self-righteous. So to think that I am doing God's will, that can lead to a lot of righteous arrogance. A person becomes arrogant, but they become very self-righteous in being arrogant. I was in Texas and I was going for a program. I saw a car ahead of me. It had a bumper sticker. It said, "Oh God, please save me from your preachers." Now, in the Christian tradition, the idea is God saves us through His preachers. But if the preachers are very condescending, very holier than thou, very judgmental, hell and brimstone speaking kind of preachers, then I don't want anything to do with these people. So, as devotees, it's not that we try to operate on the platform of certainty. A devotee has certainty that there is some plan of Krishna. So certainty at the level of appreciating. Nothing is outside of Krishna's plan. At the level of appreciating, whatever is happening, it is not just by chance, it is not just by this person did this, but at the level of contributing. We need to have curiosity. So when Srila Prabhupada was writing Back to God magazine and distributing in India in 1940s, one postman told him that, Swamiji, if you write magazine, people just throw it away. You write books. Now this was an unknown postman. When our devotees were writing a biography of Srila Prabhupada, they tried to find out who this postman was. And 25 people claimed I was that postman. So everybody wanted that pride of association with that saintly person. But when Prabhupada heard this, Prabhupada didn't think, I am a pure devotee, I am following the instruction of my spiritual master, I know what I am doing. Who do you think you are telling me? I am doing Krishna's will. No, Prabhupada is open. Yeah, what he's saying makes sense. He had curiosity and he learned. So that's why when we contribute, it is with curiosity. Is this working? If it is working, we move forward. If it's not working, then we may have to change strategies. And that brings me to the last part of the acronym. What is the acronym?
Appreciate.
Appreciate, contribute, and last is transcend. Tolerate is already over. We talked about mitigate, emigrate, and tolerate over there. Transcend means that this is where, that when we make our plans, that means, okay, there is some plan of Krishna, and within that plan of Krishna, so this is, what we understand is that it's like this is a bigger Krishna's plan, and we are always within Krishna's plan. But now, within Krishna's plan, say if I am here, and say it's a general direction. So the direction is that we are from material consciousness, we are from self-centered consciousness or material consciousness. From there, we want to develop love for Krishna. We want to go towards spiritual consciousness. We want to develop spiritual consciousness. We want to develop love for Krishna. That's a broad plan of Krishna. So Krishna wants us to be happy, and Krishna wants us to help others to be happy. This is a broad plan of Krishna. Now, when we are moving upwards, now on this lane, one lane might be mitigate, another lane might be emigrate, another lane might be tolerate. So Krishna's plan can have many lanes, and two devotees may choose different lanes also. And that's fair enough. So when we work in this way, it is important that when we make our plan, that ultimately our attachment to Krishna should be more than to our plan. Krishna, I have a plan and I want things to work out in this way. But if those things don't work out, then it's not that we become bitter. It's not that we reject Krishna. I worked so hard. Why didn't this work out? So, actually, this is the last visual I'll conclude with. That there is our plan and there is Krishna's plan. So now, if our plan is working, and when I say about Krishna's plan is always working. But if we are not aware of Krishna's plan, we are not Krishna conscious. Let's put it this way: that we are Krishna conscious. If we are not Krishna conscious, our plan works, but we are not Krishna conscious, then we will become prideful. Oh, I am so good, I am so great. So, you see some people who are very successful, they have such a arrogance to them sometimes. So, now, since Krishna's plan is awareness of Krishna's plan. No. Because even our failure or success are a part of Krishna's plan, but are we aware of Krishna's plan? That's the question. So now, if our plan is not working and we are not even aware of God's plan, then we'll just become frustrated. This is where we'll become resentful. We'll become very bitter. Now, suppose our plan is working and Krishna's plan is also working. That is, we plan something, it works out wonderfully. That's where we can be grateful. Grateful that things are working out nicely. And if our plan doesn't work, we know that Krishna's plan is still working. That's where we can be graceful. Graceful means, yes, in the external world results are not coming, but Krishna, I know you are with me and I am grateful to be with you. I know your mercy is with me. So we can be graceful. So if we look at Srila Prabhupada's life, when did he meet his spiritual master? Anyone knows? Which year? 1922, he met his spiritual master. And that time his spiritual master told him, you are good at English, you should share the Bhakti wisdom in English language all over the world, especially the Western world. Since that, Prabhupada started trying in various ways. He tried to build a business by which he could financially support his spiritual master. He tried to start an organization, he tried to start a magazine. He tried to work with the existing institution and his god brothers. But nothing seemed to work. Even when he came to America, from 65, nothing worked. 66 slowly started getting some followers. But then also success was very minimal. So 1962 to 68, almost 68, Srila Prabhupada had a severe health crisis and he had to go back to India. And that time everything would have fallen apart, but somehow the devotees at that time, they became more serious. And when he came back, that's when things really took off. And say 68 to 77, things worked out spectacularly. There were 108 temples were built, 70 books were written, Prabhupada traveled 14 times across the world, and thousands and thousands of people became devotees, and millions became attracted to Krishna Bhakti. So Prabhupada got extraordinary success. Oh, but we say transcend means what? That our focus needs to be on Krishna's plan, even if Krishna's plan goes against our plan. So now towards the end, I recognize this just about 5-6 months ago. And since then, whenever I see Srila Prabhupada, this reminds it. I'm shaken by this remembrance. So, do you know when Srila Prabhupada departed from the world? Yes, November 14, 1977. Now, there is one temple for which Srila Prabhupada struggled and endeavored much more than anything else. Which was that? The Mumbai, the Juhu temple. Does anyone know when that temple was inaugurated? That was actually on Sankranti, 1978. So just 2 months after Srila Prabhupada departed. Now this was the project for which Prabhupada fought tirelessly. Now Prabhupada could have said to Krishna, Krishna, just let me see this temple being inaugurated. If Prabhupada had made a personal promise to Krishna, Krishna, you come and stay in this, initially to the tent, you come and stay in this tent, and I'll build a temple for you. But when Prabhupada saw that his body was falling apart, when Prabhupada felt that Krishna is calling me back, Prabhupada gracefully accepted. There was one of his well-wishers, he asked him, Swamiji, do you have any last desires? And Prabhupada replied, Kuch ichha nahi. Now, did Prabhupada not desire? Would he not have desired to see the Jew temple? Of course he would have. But his desire was subordinate to Krishna's plan. Prabhupada had his plans and he tried vigorously to fulfill his plans. But Prabhupada never held his plans so tightly that he would let go of his hold on Krishna. He did not become bitter. Why is this happening? Why am I not able to see the temple? Prabhupada held his plans lightly and he held Krishna tightly. So that means we transcend our own plans. We do our best. But sometimes, whether we choose to mitigate or immigrate or tolerate, sometimes despite our doing our best, sometimes things may not work out. But if we have that attitude of serving Krishna, then even if the plan in terms of the external results will not work out, but the plan in terms of the internal results, the plan in terms of our attachment to Krishna increasing, will surely work out. And that is the greatness of Krishna consciousness. So ultimately, when Krishna's plan has an external dimension to it, there is an internal dimension to it. The external dimension is that our circumstances improve. Now we all would like to improve our circumstances. We all would like to leave the world a better place than what we were born into. Or at least we would like to leave our family in a better place. We would like to leave our corner of the world better. We can try to improve our circumstances, we should. But more important is our own consciousness. Sometimes we may get so very attached. Both are important. This is important, but this is much more important. So we transcend means we transcend our efforts to make our plan work and change our circumstances. We focus on changing our consciousness. Sometimes some devotees work very hard to try to serve Krishna, and when they feel that other devotees are not cooperating, the temple management is not cooperating, or this person not cooperating, they become very bitter. And now it's understandable. We want to do something for Krishna and others are not coming in the way, others are not understanding or doing. Then some negative feeling will be there. But that should not occupy or consume our consciousness. Yes, it's Krishna's plan. I will do my service. If I want to mitigate, I can try to mitigate. If I want to tolerate, I can tolerate. If I want to immigrate, I can immigrate. But don't let the situation or the circumstance become so big that it consumes our consciousness. In our consciousness, Krishna needs to be the most prominent reality. The circumstances are important, we try to change them, but they don't become bigger. So, this is our consciousness. In our consciousness, it is Krishna who needs to be the most prominent reality. And even when Srila Prabhupada was an unknown Swami walking on the streets of America, you could say his lifetime, there's no noteworthy success for him. Sometimes when you look back at your life at the age of 50 or 60, when you start going in the second half, what did I really achieve in my life? And Prabhupada had practically nothing to show. He didn't have a business, he did not have financial security, his family had not really supported him in his bhakti, he did not have any disciples. What did he have to show? He said nothing. But that did not make him better. His circumstances were a small part in his consciousness. So he remained happy in serving Krishna. Sometimes the circumstances can become better. That's wonderful. Sometimes circumstances can become worse. But a devotee doesn't become bitter because of that. So in that way, whatever happens, each one of us can always stay a part of Krishna's plan. So I'll summarize what I discussed today. How to be a part of Krishna's plan. How to hold our plans lightly and how to hold Krishna tightly. So I discussed 3 points over here. What is the first point? Anyone remembers? What is the acronym?
Appreciate.
ACT. A was
Appreciate.
appreciate. Appreciate that Krishna's plan is always acting. That everything is within Krishna's plan. Everything means what is done by me and what is done through me. To me. What is by me and what is done to me. Both are. Everything is Krishna's plan. Maybe, maybe not. But everything is within Krishna's plan. So that nothing happens, everything within Krishna's plan means everything that happens is God filtered. It has gone through the filter of God's, if not his intention, then his permission at least. We discussed how Duryodhana's defiance of Krishna was also incorporated in Krishna's plan. So his intention could be, say, plan A. But his permission, okay, that's what you want to do. That could be plan B, plan C, plan D. Krishna has many ways to make his plan move forward. That's why we discuss the difference between plan and purpose. Like a school, you take the example of a school. School's purpose is that students be educated and promoted. The school has a plan for those students who don't study also. Or that the example I took was the GPS. That is always a possibility to reroute. So there is never a possibility that rerouting will never happen. Rerouting is always possible. And that's why whatever we do, we are never thrown out of the GPS. The GPS here is God's positioning system. So our wrong turns, we discussed another acronym. What was that?
Met.
When we really contemplate the situation, we may decide to tolerate it. Okay. So the tolerance is based on, the principle is we keep big things big. And we keep small things small. So now we need to be able to decide what is a small thing and what is a big thing. So tolerance is not the only way to be a part of Krishna's plan. So we could go one extreme is intolerance, where we make small things big. And the other is impotence, where we let a big thing become small. But in between is tolerance. So sometimes we may tolerate a situation because, well, okay, there's some bigger good that can come from over here. So we discussed how the Pandavas tolerated initially when Bhima was attempted to be killed. The next is emigrate. So we may get, so tolerate means, okay, the system is not really doing me good for me, but there's some other things which are good, so I'll be a part of the system. But emigrate, we decide, I just want to get out of the system. I don't want to be here at all. But we are emigrating, we are not running away. We are tolerating, we are not suffocating. Or we may decide, the third thing, mitigate. That I want to be a part of the system and I will fix the system. I'll do what I can to fix the system. And all these three, if we consider Krishna's plan, we consider in that, all three could be lanes on Krishna's plan. So each person based on their particular position and their disposition may decide differently, and that's fair enough. And the last part was transcend. Transcend means that even with our best use of intelligence, when we make a plan, our attachment to Krishna needs to be greater than our plan, even if it is what? Krishna's service. And that's how we discuss that. How these 4 quadrants, that our execution of our plan execution, either it works, and our awareness of Krishna's plan. So sometimes our execution of execution. Okay, I think my execution of my plan of writing is not working. Okay. So our execution of our plan may work, may not work. If it works, we are not aware of Krishna's plan, then we will become prideful. We will become very arrogant. If neither our plan is working nor are we aware of Krishna's plan, then we will become resentful. If our plan is working and we are also aware of Krishna's plan, then what happens is we are grateful. So if our plan is not working, but you are aware of Krishna's plan, then you can be
Graceful.
graceful. Excellent. So discussion of Prabhupada's life, how 22 to 68 he was graceful even when no results were coming. 68 to 77 he was grateful, but towards the end, again in 77, at the end, Krishna had him, his most invested project didn't work, but Prabhupada was not bitter. Prabhupada accepted that. Even if this doesn't work, Krishna's plan has an external dimension and an internal dimension. External dimension is we want to improve our circumstance. And the internal dimension is we want to improve our consciousness. So ultimately, improve our circumstance means that we want to make our corner of the world better. Consciousness means we want to make our own consciousness, our heart more attracted towards Krishna. So both are important, but improving consciousness is much more important. That's how we can hold our plan lightly. Even if my plan is not working, if we stay open to Krishna's plan, we'll find that our heart will be drawn towards Krishna. Krishna will take us toward a better place. So life may be unfair, but in the big picture, life will be fairly unfair. So in this way, we can hold our plans lightly and hold Krishna tightly. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. So let us conclude with this prayer to Krishna. My dear Lord, let my plans not blind me to your plan. Shri Krishna Bhagwan ki Jai. Shri Prabhupada ki Jai. Jai Gaur Premanande. So, are there any questions? Or do we have time for questions? Surrender room? Maybe one or two questions we'll take.
We should take a couple. I know there is a restlessness, but program will be incomplete without questions. So let's take.
I was doing a youth meeting and there was a question. Is there any questions? So what you said, okay, the question is when the class going to end. So it will end soon. Yeah.
Can you raise the volume?
Yes, please.
There's the mic. Someone has it.
Three questions. Any of the Vaishnavas have any questions? Okay, we'll come to you if required. I'll try to answer these questions.
Prabhu, I framed this question with my mere knowledge. Please pardon me if I say something irrelevant. Though I feel like you connected the answer with like met and act, but still if you throw light, that would be great. In our day-to-day life, what measures would you suggest to a domestic working professional individual on how to tackle the unknown fear of losing one's spirituality when he ends up being surrounded with people, circumstances, obligations that might push him to jump to the lane of pleasure, whether materialistic or physical?
Okay. Thank you. That's a very honest question. I would say that we are all pleasure-seeking creatures and we do need pleasure. And it is not that, say, our pleasure and Krishna's pleasure, they are two completely non-intersecting circles. That we have to give up our pleasure to get Krishna's pleasure. It's not like that. As in Australia, and there's one place I go, there's one young man who comes and sits right in front. And throughout the class, he's glaring at me. Not even staring, glaring. And the only way I can give a class is by looking at everyone except at that person. So then I asked the local leader over there, is something the matter with him? Even if there is some humor in the class, laughter cannot dare to touch his lips also. Not even a smile. I asked him, what is the issue? Is something the issue? He said, no, it's not just with you. He's always like this only. That increased my curiosity. And then I asked him, is there any reason why you're so serious in the class? He said, I'm very scared. Really scared of what? I heard that if we seek any pleasure independent of Krishna, that will bind us to the material world. So he said, in the class, I'm afraid to laugh because I'm laughing for my own pleasure and not for Krishna's pleasure. So I told him, you don't have to, like, this is paralysis by analysis. It's not that you're watching some vulgar comedy show or something like that. It's in a spiritual talk. In that context, there's some humor, laugh. Now, Krishna wants us to be happy. But Krishna doesn't want us to seek our present happiness at the cost of our future happiness. If somebody says, I'll drink and smoke and I'll enjoy. Well, you'll enjoy now, but there'll be a heavy price to pay afterwards. So it's not that Bhakti and the principles of Bhakti are against pleasure. They are against pleasure that comes with a invisible cost in the future. So it's like, their life is always a negotiation. There is the present me, and there is the present me, and there is the potential me. This is a very important principle which we can use in guiding our children also, especially when they start growing older. That when we give them some rules, they may not like those rules. But if we focus on a point that you want to enjoy right now, that's fine. But imagine, say, if you were trapped in some storm and we have enough food for 10 days. Now we could have a feast on the first day, and after 6 days we'll have no food for ourselves. So our present enjoyment should not come at the cost of the future. But if you say, okay, we won't have food in the future, so we won't eat any food at all now. Then we'll have food for the future, but there'll be no me in the future to have that food. Isn't it? So what happens is, if we seek only the present me, then we will degrade. Or at least we'll stagnate. So, for example, we want to have fun in life. Kids want to have fun, for example. They say, I want to party, I want to do this, I want to do that. But if they neglect their studies, they neglect their health, they neglect building good habits, then that will be a problem for the future. But on the other hand, if you focus only on the future and don't care for the present at all, then what will happen is the person will suffocate. That is not very healthy. I was being driven by one American kid, born in a devotee family. So I think I mentioned this yesterday, that he said that I feel as if my parents don't love me at all. So he said, what happened? I said, no, your parents care for me. He said, they care for a future version of me. And they said, they're tolerating my present me. Now, children should not feel like that. So if you care only for the present, not for the present, if you care only for the future, not for the present, it will also not work. So each one of us has to find a balance. So try to see within Bhakti which are the activities that give us some higher pleasure, which are the activities that give us some dharmic pleasure, and make sure that we do spend some time doing those activities. And then what will happen is, we will be able to resist the temptations when there are other pleasures that come up. And other places are also not the same. There are some sattvic pleasures are there. If you want to go for some hiking or somewhere to some place, that's not necessarily hiking to nature. It's not necessarily a bad thing. But while hiking, people are going to drink and smoke. That's not a good thing. So we can say even pleasures outside Bhakti, there could be sattvic, rajasic, tamasic. So we want to avoid tamasic pleasures because they will be anti-devotional. Sattvic pleasures are not a problem. If somebody wants to go and I'm curious, I want to go and see this place or see that place. Vihar, entertainment is a part of a human life. The problem is not with entertainment. Entertainment can be a break from life. But nowadays, some people are so infatuated with entertainment that life is a break from entertainment for them. What they're doing on phones, their video game, their TV show watching, that's the most important thing in their life. And real life, with all the responsibilities and challenges and opportunities, that's just a break from that. You don't want to be at that level. Okay?
Thank you.
So have this inner negotiation so that the present me is not suffocated But the present me's enjoyment is not at the cost of the future me. Yes, right. Yes.
Prabhu, so Dhruva Maharaj and Prahlad Maharaj. So can we say that Dhruva Maharaj immigrated and Prahlad Maharaj tolerated?
Good answer. I would say Dhruva Maharaj immigrated because he wanted to mitigate. But he didn't really want, it was immigrate only, it was not mitigate. Because he didn't really want his father's kingdom. He said, I want a kingdom bigger than my father's kingdom. So yes, he immigrated. And Prahlad tolerated, yes. Good application. Yes, no?
I always wonder, I think I pretty much know what's right and what's wrong. But it's always a struggle because it's easier to do the not so right things and difficult to do the right things. And you, in spite of knowing that, because it's easy, because it's more pleasureful, we tend to do the not so right things, and trying not to do that sometimes becomes a burden, and you don't want to suffocate, so you might as well indulge, you know.
So that's why,
How do
again, we can have a range. The range is that it's every area where we want to improve in life. There can be an aspirational level and there can be a non-negotiable level. So for example, my aspirational level might be that no matter how anyone provokes me, I will not get angry. I will not yell at anyone. That is what I aspire to be. And it's good to try to go toward the aspirational level. But we all have different conditionings within us. And sometimes we just get very provoked. So then, okay, even if I get angry, a non-negotiable level would be that, I'm not going to use foul words. I'm not going to use swear words. Or, no matter how angry I get, I'm not going to physically hit someone. So there is some boundary. So it doesn't have to be 1-0. Then there is success or failure. It has to be, sometimes women, okay, I don't want to eat this kind of food. But then I have a craving to eat that kind of food. Okay, then if I want to eat that kind of food, let me have some boundaries. Maybe in terms of quantity. Okay, I want to eat some food. Okay, I want to eat meat. If you are serious devotees, for that's not negotiable. But suppose somebody likes the taste of something like meat. Maybe you have some soya kind of food or something which has that same feel, maybe some same taste. There is something which is within the non-negotiable, we can do that. So each one of us can find out. We don't have to be hard on ourselves and try to stick to the aspirational level all the time. But so again, if you can consider this in terms of pendulum, if we constantly seek to be at the aspirational level, only aspirational, then we will suffocate. As our confidence increases, our strength increases, we can choose the bigger battles also. In the past, Pakistan attacked India, India did nothing. But now India has dealt with Pakistan more than a couple of times. Now India has not yet dealt with China. We are not strong enough for that. That doesn't mean letting China walk all over us. But we are not taking the battle to China right now. So we choose our battles. So like that we also choose our battles. Okay. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai.